So let's just talk about the business landscape for the moment. Clearly, we are absolutely in the age of the baby boomers retiring. And as such, there are unbelievable opportunities out there to take on business. I've had probably 40 different conversations with business owners over the last year. Pretty much all of them are in the 55 plus and want to get out within the next 2-3 years. I'm not going to do a great big pitch or whatever, but for those that would like to do a deeper dive with us, I am going to run a course in March here in Luton and in April out in the US. We ran a couple of these last year to really deep dive on what you do before the deal and what you do afterwards. If you figure that there are 5 components to doing a work-in buyout, work-into sale, or as we're now doing with Andrew Hartshorn, Kevin Cassidy, Simon Kramer, and Darren Gallagher, with a number of minority roll-ups. Obviously, there's the sourcing component, the first contact, putting the deal together, agreeing the deal, and then what you do thereafter. Today, I'm really going to cover 2, 3, and 4, and only brush on the other 2. And then when we go to a Q&A session after the small presentation, I'll then take questions on the other elements of it. But just to really brush on the sourcing, networking is something that has proven very, very profitable to me over the last 15 years. I've earned a lot of money off of networking. I would not underestimate going to networking events. I did one here at the Business and Technology Centre earlier in the week, and we've got 2 conversations going. Didn't expect that because they were all smaller businesses. Joint venturing, 100%. Joint venture with local accountants, business coaches, those people that also talk to the type of people that own businesses and may want to get out. LinkedIn, obviously, it's phenomenal. Outreach, prospecting, and then obviously the direct mail and everything that Jeremy covers in the Harbour Club course. So the first thing that I need to share with you is mindset. Mindset is absolutely everything to the success that you will achieve in building your business in the M&A area. If you believe or do not believe, they hear it in your voice, because what you focus on, your language will follow. And if you're unconfident, it will be heard out loud. I sincerely impress upon everybody to spend some time being very focused in your conversation and the narrative and getting the process right before you have the conversation. Because if you look at the architecture of why one human being buys from another, and of course, we're talking to a business owner who has put their lifeblood into their business. They've been awake at night wondering how will they pay the VAT bill or the tax man. It's precious to them. And as it's precious to them, there is no way that they're going to part with a percentage of their business unless they have faith in you. Now, I asked this of someone once. I said, well, why was it that you bought in? They said, well, I had faith that you would actually deliver. And I said, oh, okay. I thought that was interesting. So if you've got faith, by default, you have to have trust and belief in that person in order to gain faith in them, haven't you? So how do you do that? Well, how do they get trust and belief? Well, they buy into your story and your personality, and your ethics and values come through to where they gain that faith, trust, and belief. Now, if you flipped this on its head, what you would have is a marketing funnel or sales funnel, because those business owners have to become aware that you exist to begin with, and then find out a little bit about your story and your personality, and gradually you build up that trust to where they'll share information with you. Now, regardless of what it is that you sell, a product, a service, whatever, the law is as follows. People buy people first, then they buy the organization. The very last thing that they buy is the offering, i.e. the service or what it is that we're giving to them. So by and large, most people will answer your outreach and you'll jump on the telephone. And I highly recommend that you take it off of an email or off of a letter and get onto a telephone conversation as soon as you possibly can. The back and forward of sending emails and asking for information, doing so, there's no rapport that you can build up on that. So I highly recommend that the very first thing you do is get onto that phone call. Now, on that phone call, you do not want to spend an hour on the call. You really don't. I think that there's only two things, and this is where focus goes, energy flows comes from, is what you're really looking to do is really just gain a praxis of that business, a little bit about the business owner, and specifically about what does the business owner want. Soon as you've gained those three elements, that light outreach, the very next thing that you're looking to do is move to an appointment, a face-to-face appointment. And by a face-to-face appointment, what I mean by that is that you get a Zoom, or it could actually be physically face-to-face. So what does the telephone conversation break down to? 5 very simple, easy steps. I'll ad-lib this and say, so tell me, what is it that your business specializes in? Well, we're an engineering company that specifically makes brake discs for trains. So we've got a contract. So coming back to the telephone conversation, obviously you've sent out the outreach. They've responded. You've looked at the business. You know they're an engineering company. You know that the character that owns the company is called Sam. I don't know where I'm getting this. I'm making it up as I'm going along. So you get on the phone to Sam. So tell me, Sam, how has business been over the last few years? Yeah, it's been good. It's a bit challenging. Okay, so tell me, I looked on your website. It looks like your company's about 20, 30 years old. When did you found the company? Oh, we founded it in 1967. Okay, fabulous. So how's things been since the pandemic? It's been tough, really. So roughly what was you turning over and netting out before pandemic and then in the last year? And then you've got those rough figures off of them, yeah? And then you want to move to what does the business owner, sorry, here we are. Yeah, what does the business owner really want? Well, you only want an outline, as in they want to sell the business now, they want to get some financing, they want to build it to a sale in 2 or 3 years' time, whatever that is. At that point, before going any further, I would highly recommend that you say, well, okay, let's set up a face-to-face. We'll jump on a Zoom, or you'll physically get to sit down with them, okay? Now, once you're sitting down with them, I think that what we want to do is have a temporal conversation. So a temporal conversation does a few things. So let's return to sales 101. So if you sell anything, and in this case, you are selling you to the business owner, that you have a potential solution to whatever challenges that they have. So that's a 5-step sales process. So the first part is getting into rapport. If you go straight into the detail of having a businessy conversation, they will fall out very quickly. So we need to get into rapport. Step 2 is asking questions. Step 3 is finding out what they really, really want, what their drivers are. Now, 1, 2, and 3 are actually happening simultaneously. And we do that using the temporal conversation. So when did you start the business? What was the first 5, 10 years? What's been the major challenges? People don't realize what they say as they're talking. And so if you're sitting down and you've got a pen and paper and you're taking notes, and that character says, yeah, for the first 10 or 15 years, we were doing absolutely fantastic. And then my business partner did X, Y, and Z, and we lost. Okay, you're starting to get a feel for how the guy thinks, or how the husband and wife think. And you're also finding out, if it is a husband and wife business, what the dynamics, what the psychology is between the two. Is the alpha the wife, or is the alpha the husband? Who does which parts of the business? Because we want to know and understand the whole psychology of the business and the culture that's within that business as well. And that's all going to come through to you as you're talking about that journey of how the business has got from point A to point B where we are today. Then the next part of that journey is asking about, how was the business up until pandemic? How did pandemic affect it? And what's it been like in the last 12 months since pandemic? Has it restored to normal? Now, if they're saying to you, do you know what, we're not really affected by it, fabulous, this is a great little business. Or, yeah, we had our knees cut off on this one. It really took us to the brink of the abyss. Okay, they've got no cash flow and they'll be leveraged to bits. I don't have to ask that. That's what it means by default. Okay, so as we get to today, by now you've got a really solid feel for how the business owner thinks, what they think of their business, what the culture is within the business, financially where they are. Within that, you can ask little questions that will give you very big answers. So, for example, did you take advantage of the government's pandemic loans? Yes, we did. Oh, okay, cool. And how's it going with servicing them? Yeah, it's tough. They're leveraged. So all these little questions have very big answers. So at this point, you now jump from the past to the future, hence the temporal conversation. In jumping to the future and say, well, okay, so where do you want to be 2 years from now? Oh, Jesus, I don't want to be in this business in the next 2 years. Okay. So what would be the perfect scenario for you? And bang, we're here. We're right on point. Or they might say to you, well, I want to exit the business and I want to walk away with, they'll very rarely say this because most of them don't know, by the way. I want to exit this in the next 2 to 3 years for X figure. Now, you really want to play around in this area of finding out what they really want. What would be a win-win for them? If you're asking the questions around there, having covered their journey, what will have happened unconsciously with them is that they'll get a degree of trust. You're not a hard-faced business VC type character who's going to come in and asset strip their business. You're going to come across as someone who's genuinely interested in them. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, please be genuinely interested in them. It will be so much easier to do deals if you ethically just come across this in the right way to try and get them the right deal. What you'll find is they'll drop all of their barriers and start telling you things that they would ordinarily never tell a virtual stranger. Now, you're still a virtual stranger because you've only had like a 20-minute conversation where they've answered a letter, and now you're probably about 20 minutes into the Zoom conversation. So it's comparatively short, the amount of time you spent, and yet they're starting to tell you some fairly crucial things. Yeah, we're quite leveraged. We borrowed $500,000 to do X, or we've got a bounce back loan that's 150 grand, and we're struggling to make it. Oh, okay. So have you lost customers? You can really start getting into the nitty gritty of what's actually happening in the business, and this, my friends, is what will now help you to start to put the deal together. Because based on all of this information that you've now gathered over the last kind of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if you let them talk, it will be 2 hours. Please don't do that. and the way that you rein in a conversation when it's, bless them, that they will talk to you like you're an agony aunt, and they'll start to unburden, is what I call the ooh technique. And the ooh technique is where they're talking, and then You'll use either a click of the hands or a tap on the mic and go, oh, that's what I meant to ask you. And then you ask a question, and before they get 3 or 4 words from their mouth, you are, and you ask a second question. From a psychology perspective, nobody can remember what they were talking about. I kind of use this with my wife sometimes. But you have to be careful with that. You can only use it intermittently, by the way. So anyway, coming back on point, the whole thing about having that initial conversation is it massively, massively improves your success rate. Because again, people buy people. So it's absolutely imperative that you gain a connection with that business owner. Because if you think about it, we're incredibly fortunate. We're part of an M&A community of over 2,000 characters across the globe. I can probably connect you personally with just about anybody that you need to help turn a company around, build a company, get funding, buyers to buy companies. Now, through all of your connections now in the Harbour Club, you've got people, I mean, take this call. Deepak and I are doing some pretty interesting stuff out in Silicon Valley. Eric, who I think is on the call here as well, we're doing some interesting stuff out in Ukraine with healthcare businesses, which, to be honest, because they're escalating things, we're going to have to hit the pause button and slow that down a bit. But it's taking in conversations literally all over the globe. If you want to get into pharmaceuticals, there'll be someone on, in the community that can help you to get to that point, right down to, HR specialists, people like Andrew Watkin, who's on the line. He's mustard at being able to analyze a company if you want to get in to do due diligence on some of the bigger stuff. But let me reel this back in. In order to do deals, we have to have had these conversations in the way that I've shared with you this afternoon, in order to get the data that we need to understand the business and what its potential is. And during that time, and I think I shared this with you a little bit earlier, I always think that the most dangerous thing you can do in business is build a business. Because as you build a business, it doesn't always allow you to see a peripheral view of what's happening on the business landscape. But if you reverse engineer a business, by default, it makes you look at the business landscape. So, for example, if you're in healthcare, specifically care homes, and you're just doing what you do, but not seeing that legislation's coming in from different angles, or competitors are coming in from overseas to buy up property, you can very, very quickly have your business turn left on you. Now, the business turning left on you is actually where we live, because we help business owners to turn their companies around, grow them, scale them, exit them. That's what we do. So reverse engineering the success of a business is something very, very few business owners ever do. And again, that's what we're doing, is we're building businesses to exit, grouping them up, JVing with fellow M&A people, and building a business to payday events. So the whole WIBO model is about taking a monthly management fee and then having payday events. So if you think about it, you only really need 5 or 6 WIBOs on the go that are paying you, $1,000 or $2,000 a month as a management fee. That's bringing in enough to pay the gas station and the grocery store. And then if you can build to get 2 or 3 payday events, i.e. exits a year, quite easily turn from kind of 500 to $1 million in exit fees. So that's why WIBOs, I think, are very, very interesting. But to bring us back on track to what do we now do with the deal? That guy, lady, couple, partners are stressed. They won't tell you that to begin with, but through the journey of what they've shared with you, you now know what that is. And by default, you will now know how to package the deal and put it together. So is that kind of nice and clean for most people? Just a little show of hands. Yeah, cool. So I think the WIBO element is a very nice, clean one, in so much as it's very straightforward. So I'll share with you two conversations that I've had this morning. One was with really nice company, founded in 1967. They do cabling harnesses, and their clients are all sorts of different MOD to all sorts of different companies. Not huge. They're about 3.2, 3.3. EBIT's not fabulous. It's about 250K. He pumps a lot of money into looking after his staff and modernizing it and being energy efficient and what have you. And he wants to exit for $1 million within the next 24 to 36 months. So what deal do you do? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, okay, look, tell you what we do. You want to take this to $1 million. Now, at this moment in time, your business making kind of 250,000 a year is very roughly 1.5 to kind of 3 times its net profit, which will give you somewhere in the region of kind of 400,000 to 500,000 as a valuation. You want to get to $1 million, and you want to do that within 24 months. Yet for the last 36 months, give or take, your turnover and profit has gone up or down by 10%. Am I understanding that right? Yeah, you are, John. Yeah, it is. Okay, so if you've only give or take bounced the business 10% over the last 2-3 years, and you want to 3 to 4-fold the profit, I think it's fair to say you're going to have to do some fairly big things, aren't you? Yes, John. Okay, cool. Well, why don't we do this? We're going to help you to get the valuation of the business within the next 24 months to around to about 1.2 to 1.3, which will give you a net of about $1 million. And the reason that 1.2, 1.3 is because obviously that's our end, because we take a 20% stake in the business and a monthly retainer to move all the levers. So the very first thing that we're going to do is some financial engineering just to make sure that our monthly reporting is absolutely on point. Then what we're going to do is create the business playbook. So we're going to take your business plan and we're going to deconstruct it and then rebuild it, analyzing exactly what we can do to significantly grow the revenues of the business. Because with a business that's as old as yours, there's a ton of money that's sitting in the database. And a pound to a penny, you're not doing database mining, or you don't have a strategy for database mining or for building the business to win more customers on a month-by-month basis, or even measuring that. No, we don't. Okay, well, that's what we'll do is we'll build a business playbook that incorporates a marketing playbook and a sales playbook. So what you're hearing me explain to them is exactly what we're going to do to increase the value of this chap's business over the next 2 years. But what you're not hearing is any detail, because that's normally a question everyone asks me. I said, well, John, if you tell them what you're going to do, they'll just go and do it. No, they won't. I've been mentoring hundreds and hundreds of businesses over the last 15 years through the workshops and trainings that we do. Let me tell you, people don't do it. They need an accountability partner. They need somebody that is going to hold them to account, keep their hand in the flame to push the thing forward. And I kind of explain a version of this to the business owner, because really, the last 3 or 4 years, you've been give or take 10%. If we're invested in the business with a percentage of the business and you're paying us some monies on a month-by-month basis, I don't want to be a burden to you. I want to make more money than I cost for you. I say this to everybody that I work with, and I would recommend that you do this too. So they say, well, what do you mean by that? So, well, look, within 90 days, I will make you more money on the bottom line than I cost, guaranteed. guaranteed, because I know I can do that 100%. Because just with a bit of financial tapestry, and then looking at how they market and how they, not even how they market, but how they communicate with their existing clients and old clients, I know I can get more money. And I know that if we tweak a couple of the services that they charge, we can ask for a bit more money, because most of these guys haven't put their prices up in years. Right, so you can absolutely cover your costs within the first couple of months. Another question that I normally get asked is, so how much do you charge, John? Well, it really depends on the business. If they're struggling, I'll say to them, tell you what, I normally charge a couple of grand a month. We'll start off at 500 quid. Once I've got that covered, it will go to £1,000, then we'll go to £2,000. If I said that to someone in America, they wouldn't think that I was serious. So the fees that Deepak's throwing out there at the moment is £5,000 a month. Because when I said a couple of grand to Deepak, he nearly threw up. But here in the UK, if you said it's £5,000 a month to most business owners, they'd be choking on their porridge. So anyway, so you balance it with the conversation, how the conversation has gone, and you balance it to what is fair. And then to a certain extent, I'm not too worried, and I don't think you should be too worried about what that management fee is. You just want to obviously make sure that you're covering your gas station and and the groceries and the mortgage and everything else. But what we really want to get is that percentage of the dividends on an annual basis and the exit. That's what I'm really interested in. So what you normally get is an objection about now. What you want 20% of my business, John? Not exactly. Well, what do you mean not exactly? So, well, look, the shares of your business are not like a public limited company. They're not traded anywhere. The shares of a normal limited company in the UK or LLC in the United States are private. So if we did a share exchange of 20% of the shares, it wouldn't cost the company anything, and it doesn't gain the company anything. It's just a share exchange. So what we do is we build a prenup into our agreement. And what I mean by that is, if only you could get into a marriage and do a prenup where you agree the divorce before you get going. Well, that's what we do in business. Okay. So if we get 6 months down the track and for whatever reason it's not working for you, we dissolve it. And then we just take 20% of the uplift plus the management fee along the way. Is that fair? I think that's fair. Yeah. In fact, we'll do that right the way through. Now, this is not very Harbour Club, because I know Jeremy was saying, no, we want to lock them in. And you may want to lock them in, and that's okay. It's just my way of doing business, is that if we get further down the tracks, because what I've also had, and I've released, I don't know, about 11 or 12, what was it, 12 companies before Christmas, because those business owners just would not engage properly. And I had no hope of getting them to where they wanted to be. So I don't want to be involved in that. So we'll just dissolve and release. We've had a couple of bucks along the way. We got 20% of the uplift, and then we wave goodbye. Okay. So to sell a WIBO WIBO is very, very simple. But its foundation rock is based on really three things. Number one, you have to get a trust element going, as we were talking about earlier. Number two is we have to know what it is that we're moving towards. And then number three is we want to make it palatable so that they don't see the fees and the costs or the percentage as a cost. Yeah. Because again, if we go back to Sales 101, if anybody looks at the price and is fixated on the price, they're ignoring the value. So in the absence of value, everyone looks at price. So if you get to that point where they're fixated on it, and don't get me wrong, I sat down, I did a one-day mentoring with a business owner about 3 weeks ago. Lovely business, actually, a probate business. And at the end of it, I thought, you know what, I wouldn't mind a piece of this. So I said to him, just supposing I could show you a way of achieving what it is that you want to achieve in 3 years instead of 8 years. He said, I'd be really, really interested. I said, okay, tell you what we do is I'll take a percentage of the business and I'll come on board and I'll make that happen with you. He said, okay, that sounds really good. He said, let me think on it. He was going away for the weekend with his partner. So he said, could you put that on a paper, what the agreement? So I ran the 4 questions that I think I shared with you, which is, what are we setting out to achieve? How will we know we've achieved it? How long will it take? And what will it cost? So I put those together and I broke the law. And the law is this: never, ever, ever send the agreement for them to look at. That is against the law, because what will happen is they'll get at their end, they'll look through that, and the buggers will always focus on the numbers of what it costs. So this is Kettley's law, which I broke. And hence what happened was he gave me a call and he said, I really, really want to do this, John, but I just can't. It's not sitting with me that I'm going to pay you money on a monthly basis and you're going to take a percentage of the dividends and the end sale. And unfortunately, he caught me coming off of one Zoom and just prepping to go on another Zoom. That was law number 2 I broke. I shouldn't have answered the damn phone because I didn't know it was him. Okay. So now it's not lost, because I'll put something I've got another way of getting around that one, which we'll end up doing that. But the bottom line is I broke the law. What I should have done was said to him, yeah, no problem. Why don't you go away, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend with your partner. Let's put in the diary that you and I are going to sit down Thursday next week or Friday, which would suit you better. So that was an alternative close, you heard, for the future. And if he'd have said, no, I really want to see it on right, and say, I don't really ever do that because everyone looks at it the wrong way. I'd rather sit down and just go line by line and make sure I haven't missed anything. Because you know what the written word looks like. Depending on your mood, you can read the same sentence 2 ways. Whereas if we're together, we can go right the way through that, shake hands and engage, and let's make, wonderful things happen. So I appreciate that I've been giving you quite a lot of information. I'm trying to take you through a sales process, which normally we would spend a whole day together to, and do some role play so that you really get it, so that it just comes from you effortlessly. But just to re-cook on that, do not have extended conversations on the telephone. Please don't do that. It will not work out well for you. Okay. What you really want to do when on that very first phone call is just get a brief outline. And from that brief outline, make an appointment to jump on a Zoom or to meet them face to face. Then in the face to face, you have the niceties, and the niceties blend effortlessly, elegantly, and easily into the temporal conversation, where you're asking them about the journey of their business. Then you're taking them into the future. And then from that, you will by default know how you're going to structure that deal. It'll just come to you because you're talking directly with them. You go, I know what we can do, X. Yeah. And then it's just a case of taking them through the next 4 questions, and the 4 questions being, why don't we just make that happen? So what have we got to do that? Well, we need to do X and Y and Z. How will we know we've done it? Well, these are going to be the KPIs. Okay, how long is it going to take us to do that? Now, I'll be honest with you, probably done that 1 out of 20 times on the Zoom. What I'll generally do from the Zoom is I want to get face to face with them. So Gavin and I did that with an engineering company this afternoon, who, funny enough, that's obviously where it came from. They manufacture brake discs for locomotive trains. That's what they do. So they're not a million miles. They're only up in Grantham, which is about an hour and a half from me. So we got 40 minutes into the Zoom conversation, and the guy was actually going to take me on a video tour of his engineering shop. And I kind of cut it and said to him, "Listen, Martin, if it's all right, I've actually got to jump onto another Zoom. Why don't we do this? Why don't you come down and let's have a conversation?" Because this was with another harbour clubber that we were JVing with. So Gavin's coming up from Hampshire, I think it is. I'm in Stevenage, which is just north of London here in the UK, for those overseas. So in that conversation on March the 1st, we'll sit down, and at the end of what is normally 90 minutes to 2 hours, we'll do a deal. It'll be done. So that's it. I know that was a tall glass of water. I'm sure that you may have a couple of questions that will come off the back of that.
So we got 4 questions. The 4 questions, John, that you have, a couple people in the chat. Again, if you could go over those 4 questions, make sure we caught those, please.
Yes. So share this screen with you. The very first question: what are we setting out to achieve? Well, we want to put all the processes in place. We want to get the financial engineering done. We want to make sure that you've got a awesome business playbook that maps out all of the waypoints between here and our success. We want to map out. We want to map out. We want to map out. That's what all goes underneath here. Second part: how will we know we've succeeded? Well, we'll be making more money. That's for sure. We'll be doing this, we'll be doing that. So under this section, you'll just put all of those KPIs. How long will it take? Now, I don't put a huge amount into this other than to say, in the first 90 days, we're going to do X. In the next 90 days, or in the first 6 months, we'll do Y. And then you get to the next piece, which is, what will it cost? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Splendid. I just want to cover objections for a moment. There are only 4 objections that you will ever hear selling anything, and in this case, selling yourself. Look, I'd like to look at this, but I haven't really got the time at the moment. I bet you've all heard that. Oh, that's expensive. What they're actually thinking is that it's expensive. Listen, I know this is going to work for others, but I don't think it's going to work for me. Now, if you think about this and you chunk it up into bigger picture, all of those is actually number 4. All of them. Because if they haven't got the time, it means you haven't made what you're saying unbelievably valuable. If they think it's expensive, you haven't shared with them exactly what you're doing to get them to where they want to go. Yeah, and it works for others, not working for me. Just plain don't believe you. That's just where it is. So that's why I say that in the absence of value, everybody always looks at price. It's just how it is. So there you go. At the end of the conversation, it's always the same. Smile and walk away and start a brand new day. I'm actually just going to backtrack at something that I missed earlier on in the conversation, which I think will be valuable to you. So over the last kind of 6 to 9 months, we've had a lot of I've had a lot of harbour clubbers that came to me and said, "Look, John, can you help me close this deal?" And so I've hopped onto different ones. Well, it became too much, which is why I pulled together a really killer team of awesome characters to help close more deals and to do more minority roll-ups, both in the US, in Europe, in US and Europe and beyond. And so But a lot of the characters that came to me with such little information, I really couldn't do much. So we created something called the business snapshot. And this is what it looks like. You're more than welcome. I will send it if you just DM me directly. Let that be via LinkedIn, or I'm not quite sure I'm going to do that through the Zoom mechanism, but either through Harbor or whatever, and I'll send this directly to you. So going back to the qualification, these are the things that we must know. We want a brief history of the business, a description of what they do and who their client avatars are, and just a rough outline of the last 3 years. Like, you know, example would be, yeah, we make motorboats, but in the last 3 years, no one really wanted to buy them because of pandemic. But now we're coming out, we've got so many orders, we've got an 18-month waiting list. Fabulous. I just want to know that. And then who those businesses are, a brief history about them as people and what makes them tick, and what they personally want to achieve. That is the absolutely most important thing of all. What their dominant driving force is, the reason that they want what they say they want. If you can get this, this would be fabulous. But I can generally get this on a Zoom call fairly easily, what their top and tails are, what they made in sales revenues, what their net profit is, and what they've got in the way of assets. This is something that you don't normally get until you get a little further in the conversation, is to give a real snapshot of them. I want to know what their property costs. So if they're spending 20 grand a month in to open the door, and they're spending 100 grand a month in wages, and their cost of sale is 70 grand. I know I've got 200 grand in costs on an average month. So this is their monthly outlay. And then if I can work out what their average revenues are, it tells me very, very quickly whether they've got what the monthly P&L is. I've got one company, they were a baker with 9 shops. So he said, oh yeah, we make about 28 grand a month net after all X's. I said, well, that's fabulous, wonderful. They were spending 10 grand a month in accountancy fees. They were behind in their rent. They were behind in the utilities on one of their shops. They had tax arrears and 27 loans totaling 50 grand a month. So they were horribly upside down, horribly. Now that's not, but if you get that snapshot, it just tells you very quickly what you can do with the business. And again, from the conversation. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions?
What are the dates for the training?
In March 22-23, we spend a day on the negotiation and winning the deal. And then we spend a day on exactly what to do after, which is the business. Because the financial engineering, I'm going to take it, you guys know that from the Harbour Club course. But the next part is exactly how to do the business canvas and the business playbook, the marketing playbook, the sales playbook, and the agenda for the first 12 months, what you do on a month-by-month basis, and how to leverage your time by, once you're doing multiple deals, how to put those guys into a peer group in the room, deep dive into what your practice looks like and underpin you going forward. And then on a weekly basis, we have an accountability stroke Q&A session to just help you do more deals. I have a deal I need some advice on. Can we do a JV? Absolutely. DM me straight, please. How do you translate your experience to their needs to grow? Okay, Marcel, can you give me a little bit of more framework on that question, please?
Yeah, thanks. Hi. If you don't have much experience in WIBOs, how do you know what value you can add to the business? I mean, you've got experience, you've got a track record, you understand how to grow businesses, but somebody new coming in saying, okay, found a few opportunities, they stuck with sales and marketing, but you yourself got no experience. How do you get over that?
Okay, just to kind of put you on point for a little bit? Marcel, just give me a 10, 15 second overview of your career.
30 years in telecommunications, worked in 46 countries.
Doing what?
Data network design, infrastructure strategy.
Okay. I would bring that to the table.
Okay.
So when you're talking to a business owner and he says, well, so Marcel, what are you going to do? So, well, look, I've an entire career of putting in the processes that make a business work, that deliver the promise to the client. Would that be fair, Marcel?
Yeah.
Have I blurred the edges?
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I'm connected with probably one of the largest SME-focused M&A communities in the world, which you are. Okay, and I've got the connections to plug virtually any challenge that comes up once we engage together.
Brilliant.
That's exactly how I'd answer it. Thank
you.
What would a playbook look like? Here's what a playbook looks like. Okay, very simplistic. It just maps out who we are as an organization, our mission statement, what our brand and objectives are all about, who we serve, where the key markets are. Let's take you down a little bit further. So we deep dive on the PR story so that we know exactly what the website narrative and linguistics should be. We re-engineer the mission statement so it actually resonates with the customer, because it's not about us, it's always about the customer. We deep dive into the vision and the values, which are part of the USP. We then work out the organizational chart, how that's all mapped out, and the three real differentiators that differentiates us from everybody else. The one-liner that says it all. Then we deep dive on the three client avatars, the core avatar and the avatar that's 2 degrees to the left or 2 degrees to the right. We work out what our typical customer really, really desires and what their pains really are, those visceral pains that they normally feel. And then we put together an offering that speaks directly to those desires and the pains. And then we work out, obviously, the offering matrix, the methodology for the company, the sales processes, how we answer a call, how we follow up a call, how we deal with a prospecting call, exactly the sequence that we put together for that, how we do database mining, how we give a referral, how we receive a referral, literally down to the linguistics and the script, how we use our CRM systems, and so on. So that's just the sales playbook, but it gives you a feel for what the business playbook looks like. So it maps everything out and says, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Now, because everything that we're doing through the business playbook, the marketing playbook, and the sales playbook, we are building that not for the business, we're building it for the buyer. That's what we're building it for. I'm building this to sell on day one. I want to buy when those buyers come in, because I'm going to lay the seeds for them to buy me further down the tracks. And so I want them to look at that and go, wow, this company is phenomenal. It's wired up right. Its financial reporting's correct. It's got great relationships in the marketplace. It gives us access to this type of client, that type of client. I'm building up the sales brochure for the buyer.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, what are typically the action points or levers you utilize to increase sales or bring value to the business? Again, pretty much deep diving into mining. I think that most companies do it wrong. They want to put a marketing piece out to attract people they don't know. Why would you do that? I would start with who you know best and then work out to people I don't know. That's much more logical, because you're going to get faster results. It's lower hanging fruit that comes off the back of that. The cost of training, we keep it real, $3 grand. if we end up doing a deal, that comes back out of it. So it costs you nothing if you JV with us and we end up doing a deal together. If not, you've got probably some of, I'll say it myself, the best training in the world. You are armed to go forward. How can we register? Just get in touch with me. Unless that's terrible, we don't take everyone. Get in touch. We'll have a conversation. We'll jump on a Zoom together. That's why we put Consortiat together. Is we want to JV with as many people as possible to build minority roll-ups. So we've got a silo for engineering. We want to build 5 individual 100 million companies, taking all the different tiers. So we've got, I've got 3 different buyers that are looking for businesses of a certain level, and they're struggling to buy those companies that are formed well and robust, that they can just buy and activate with. So it's part and parcel of a much bigger picture. But I think you now have a phenomenal opportunity. You are right time, right place in the 2020s, sorry, the decade of exits. There are so many business owners that are looking to get out, and their business isn't even remotely in a shape to win them the kind of monies that they want for it. I mean, even talking to a chap in engineering today, he was spot on. Most of these engineering shops, they'd struggle to get asset value, let alone a value for what the business is worth. And I must have heard at least half a dozen stories in the last kind of 8 or 9 months where someone just shut the shop. They didn't know what to do with it, didn't know how to sell it, didn't think it was saleable. So there you go. Am I open to working with other accounting firms that speak Harbour Club for prepping? Yeah, 100%, 100%. And this is, I think this is the other thing as well, as we've stepped into the real dawning of joint ventures. If you went back to the 1990s and 80s, when I was kind of entering the world, so it's all the business world, no one JV back then. Everyone was protectionist. But now it's the way to accelerate is by JVing with what was once considered a competitor. The speed of change in a connected society is getting faster and faster and faster, and you can't keep up with it unless you're JVing with the right people that can help speed up that process.
John, just on that last point you made about getting business ready for sale, how would you go to market then to find the buyer? It's probably a bit cart before the horse because obviously we haven't bought anything yet, but just going down, looking forward a bit, if you're successfully growing the business, how do you then attract the right buyer? And then if you want to get cash up front, or you're going to go through the whole process that we learned in the Harbour Club to have deferred payment, how does that work in your head? We
came across a business, a wonderful, wonderful business, middle of last year, a bakery with 12 shops, different to the other character, completely the opposite end of the spectrum, highly profitable. It was about 9 million in turnover, owns the freehold outright to the bakery itself, had reasonable leases in all of the shops, run a business that was absolutely beautifully run, systemized, profitable, etc. Problem was, he wanted top dollar for it. I had nowhere to go with it because I'm thinking, well, okay, I can put something together. We can leverage the freehold. We can give him some money out of that. I'm sure I could get a deferred. He didn't want to do deferred, but I'm sure he would have done a deferred of some description. We could have done an LBO to a degree, and we could have made it work, but it was top dollar. We would not have been able to take a nickel out of that business for probably 2.5, 3 years. So I looked at that and said, okay, number one, why would I work for 2 years for nothing? As lovely a business as that is, I'm not working for nothing. 2, who's going to buy that? Now, is it going to be Greggs or Simmons, which is the 2 biggest bakery retail, outlets? They're not going to pay for that. They're not. So I just couldn't think who the buyer was, so I didn't engage. Whereas engineering, I look at it and say, okay, if we could get 5 engineering, someone that does a lot of MOD, someone that does a lot with British Rail, someone that does a lot with, I know who I can go to as a big company to buy those. And I think what tends to happen is once you've been doing this for a little while, you start realizing that it's quite easy to go to bigger and bigger numbers. So you start off looking at companies that are turning over 500, 600, 700 grand, making 50 or 100 grand. And then pretty much within about 6 months, you start realizing, actually, it's easier to do 2 to 5 million. Then you start thinking it's easier to do 5 to 10. But anyway, I think it's about understanding the landscape of where that business is going. So if it's engineering or if it's... Does that answer that?
Yeah, thank you.
John, can I add something to that?
Yes, indeed.
I think Tony, I think there's a danger that business people grow the revenue in the expectation that it's going to attract a buyer. Now, I've had 2, 3 examples where they were probably the biggest player in their industry in, let's say, the Southeast. So who was going to buy them? No one could afford to buy them in their industry. Could someone in a related industry buy them? Maybe, but they were very, very niche. So I think coming back to John's point about understanding the landscape, I think an owner's got to understand who actually could buy that business, even though that might be 2 or 3 years on. And go to things like trade shows or read the magazines and just see what's going on and who is engaging in buying businesses. Because if they've done it before, the chances are they're used to it. They'll be more adverse to the risk. They'll be asking more pertinent questions at an early stage. But just to grow it for the sake of growing it, rather than grow it to get the profitability, that's going to make it far more attractive. And making, say, 100,000 on £1 million worth of sales is much better than making 50,000 on £2 million worth of sales, everything else being equal.
100% agree, Andrew. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. And Andrew and I know of a PLC that that turns over somewhere in the region of well, it's sub 10 million, put it this way, but it doesn't make any money. And what they're looking to do is acquire businesses that make money. And even if they went out and bought 5 businesses that just made 200-300 grand, that massively helps them. So that's what I'm thinking when we talk about the exit, because there are other entities with a little bit of research. If you look, they want you because it does something significant to them. It gives them access to a marketplace, it gives them reach, it gives them size. There's all sorts of reasons that the bigger guys would want them. But the problem for a lot of companies, and Andrew will no doubt share on this as well, is it's very tough to sell a business that is under 3 million. And it's very tough to sell a business that only makes a few hundred grand. Would that be fair, Andrew?
It would, because under 3 million, the chances are that the business doesn't have a decent management structure in there. It probably doesn't have a business plan, as you were saying about your sales processes and marketing process. You can give that to the buyer, and the buyer's going to say, wow. The smaller businesses don't see the need to make that investment because they haven't thought about an exit. Once they start to think about an exit, they will look at their business in a different way, as I did when I decided to get out of the accountancy practice.
Well said, Andrew.
And that's probably the reason why, Andrew, it's a good idea to do WIBOs under sub 3 million and create a federated group so that you can run them entities more efficiently. Absolutely.
And they're quite easy to put together. Honestly, they are. It takes a bit of practice. You may get a few of those conversations wrong until you get up to speed. Maybe that's why I'm trying not to sell here, but that's why it might be better to JV with us if you've got one that you think is interesting and you're not 100% confident with that. myself will get on the call, Andrew will get on the call, Kevin Cassidy will get on the call, and we'll just help you to get it across the line. The nub of it is that there are hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of business coaches, advisors, and most of them, unfortunately, aren't worth a toffee because they've got a mono lens. They don't see the bigger picture. I promise you faithfully, I've been, networking for a long time. There's very few people that have the knowledge that you guys have acquired over, via the Harbour Club and Nightwise. Very few. And you'll be really surprised how that knowledge just pours out of you when you're talking to a business owner. And you genuinely can make a massive difference to these people's lives. The guy was making 400 grand a year, wasn't bothered too much about the money, but he was really worried about who would take it over and what would happen to his staff. His dominant motive was looking after the people that had been in his employ for 20 plus years. So we've got a duty of care because if he just pulls the pin and shuts the shop, all those people haven't got a job. There really are positive sides to what we do in helping businesses to keep going. Andrew can tell you a story without mentioning names of a company. You've helped retain, Andrew, 20 odd jobs, 30 jobs in one particular one that you're in?
Hopefully, yeah. We had to do a bit of a phoenix it from a company that had been around for 30 years. Still not quite complete, but we're almost there. So yeah, that COVID almost killed it. But we went in there and restructured it, turned it around.
Yeah,
and just coming out the other side.
Because that really would have crashed and burned early part of last year, wouldn't it? If you had what you did.
Without doubt, and the owner just wanted to walk away.
Hey John, where is the training, and is there one in the US?
Yes, we'll be in San Francisco on the 17th and 18th of April, and then again later in the year. I think October. Yeah, so we're April and October.
No, actually, but April's not too far, and the one in March is in the UK, correct? Just making sure.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
don't mind, going there too. So yeah, I'll reach out.
Just had a question, John, if that's right. More of a statement. I've got an opportunity that I want to run by in your group regarding some sustainable consultancy through Numbers, which is a firm which specializes in accountancy, but they focus mainly on sustainability, and they've got a proven formula that works. So I was wondering if I can bring it to the table to discuss it with somebody in your group, either through Andrew or John or whoever. That's
absolutely.
All right.
Would love to. We all good? Thank you very, very much. Appreciate you spending the afternoon. I hope you got good value from our time together, and I'll look forward to talking with you all at some stage soon.
That's good, John. Thanks so much.
Have a good one. Cheers now.
Cheers. Thank you.